Good afternoon, guys, ladies and gentlemen. How's it going? On this game day, finally, we have national championship. Game day is here. Clemson, Alabama, part four. Well, let me go. Alabama, Clemson, part four.
Oh,
Let's not,
yeah, I was gonna say.
let's not put Clemson first on anything. Let's say Alabama versus Clemson, part four. As always, we come to you today live, and got John again with me today. Um, so, John, just been going over this and watching it and looking at it and trying to, I don't know, trying to look at it different ways from different angles. And I've just been, I don't know, I've just kind of been trying to see where I'm at still with this thing, and I'm still where I was the other day. And how do you feel now that we've had a couple days to let this sink in and really dive into this matchup? And where do you sit still?
You know,
Or
it's like anything else. Are we gonna overanalyze it? Probably. I'm probably there. I'm on the brink of overanalyzing the game. I actually rewatched Clemson Notre Dame this morning, looking for that Clemson offense to have a vulnerability. I thought perhaps on the offensive line there was a way that Alabama could really change the game and really affect Trevor Lawrence, but the kid's mobile. They Notre Dame tried to bring extra guys, even though their front seven's very good, and they did slow down Travis Etienne in that running game early when they did bring pressure and Trevor Lawrence was throwing the football. There was a lot of success for Clemson. They adjusted very well. It got him early. He was forced out of the pocket early through some incompletions, but then Clemson's offensive staff adjusted, and they actually pushed more vertically with Justin Ross, with T. Higgins. Even Hunter Renfrow was catching in the intermediate to deep intermediate range, which is a little odd for him. So Clemson just decided, hey, our athletes are better than yours. And they were. Dante Vaughn got picked on. He's Notre Dame's top corner when Julian Love went down, and they picked on him all the way through. And the safeties were really just no match for the Clemson wide receivers. So I thought Clemson adjusted well to Notre Dame's plan to bring extra guys against Trevor Lawrence. So what do? Quick hitters, push the ball vertically down the field when it wasn't a quick hitter, more read option, and let Trevor decide what he wanted to do. And he actually had some success running the football, pulling it against those pressuring edge guys. So I thought the Clemson offensive line did a pretty good job. When they did get beat, it was off of the edge, which allowed Trevor to either step up in the pocket and make throws, which is where he's comfortable, or spin out of it and make plays on the run, which he is still capable of. Maybe not as comfortable as Tua on the run, but still capable on the run, especially if he's pushing the ball vertically, which is what he did against a weaker secondary. So I thought Clemson adjusted very well to Notre Dame. But even then, I actually thought, and I remember saying this live because I remember T. Higgins dropped a touchdown. I remember Clemson missed a field goal. There was that weird phantom fumble. Clemson left points on the board, and they still boat raced Notre Dame, who's a very good defense. So I come away watching that game again for the first time since I saw it live, thinking more highly of Clemson, which I'm sure everyone here wants to hear. I just
Of course they do.
the more I think about this game, it's the more I think it's going to be a freaking classic. Like I think it's going to be a hell of a game, and I just can't wait. I just can't wait. I'm more excited for this game than any of the previous Alabama Clemson games, and I attended one. I was on the sidelines for one, and I'm more excited tonight than that one a couple of years ago. And Bama fans, that's the one Bama lost. So yeah, I'm more excited today than that day. But I just every angle I look at, I think this game gets more and more impressive. I think there's some vulnerability in the Clemson secondary. I think Alabama's front seven against the run could have some vulnerabilities that we've yet to see truly exposed since, I don't know, the Citadel in the first half. And that's funny to say, but that's true. So I just think it's going to be a very fun game. Tua versus T. Law. I wanted it in August. I'm getting it in January, and I'm just really excited about it. I think it's going to be much closer than a lot of people are expecting. I've seen a lot of Alabama players predicting a blowout. I've seen some of the CABC guys predicting a blowout. I can't see it. Doesn't mean it's impossible, but I just think there's too much firepower, and these two quarterbacks. I mean, they might be the number one picks in back-to-back drafts. So I just think it's going to live up to it, starting with those triggermen.
Yeah, definitely. I don't think I see a blowout in any way. I don't think that there's a situation where I could definitely see a blowout. I just don't. Now, could something happen and one team win by double digits? Nah, maybe, but doubtful. I think it's going to go down. It's going to come down to the end, just like it did a couple years ago with the Deshaun Watson team. I think it's going to come down to the end, and I think whoever's defense can get more stops, obviously, is going to win. But I think whoever gets that late stop will have a chance because it's going to go back and forth, I believe, in my opinion. So, I mean, that's just where I am. I've watched Notre Dame, Clemson again, and I've watched Bama, Oklahoma again, and Alabama looked sloppy against Oklahoma, like we talked about earlier, me and you. They looked sloppy against Oklahoma, but Oklahoma was so bad on defense that they got away with it. I think if Oklahoma has a good defense, that game could be way different than it was. And, that's where I am. So, have you I'm sure you've rewatched Oklahoma, Alabama. After watching that again, how do you feel about Alabama's offense and Alabama's defense going into it?
Yeah, what Nick Saban said at halftime and after was accurate. I mean, the only time Alabama was stopped in that game was when Alabama stopped Alabama. That Oklahoma defense is an embarrassment. They can't play man coverage. They can't stop the run. They can't play in the open field. They have safeties who are scared of running backs in the open field. It's an embarrassment. And I actually talked to a lot of recruits going to Oklahoma this week at Under Armour. I was like, what do you say to the perception that y'all can't play defense? And they agreed. I'm not even gonna name them, but you can probably look it up. These recruits agreed. They're like, hey, we're going to Oklahoma because I think I can go play as a freshman in the secondary because they've been so bad. They didn't say it just like that, but that's how they felt. And I agreed with them. There was really nothing that Oklahoma secondary did to impress against Alabama. You do credit Tua for unbelievable accuracy. You credit the coaching staff for moving guys around. I thought, Jerry Jeudy, the play that ended it virtually. Some will say it's the Josh Jacobs play in the second quarter to go up 28-0, but they did come back, and the play that ended that rally was the Jerry Jeudy touchdown over the middle. Oklahoma started to bring pressure again, so the OC moved Jerry Jeudy to the number 3 wide receiver position, isolated him against their third best defensive back, that is in essence the problem with dealing with Alabama. How do you combat receivers? It's not 1 and 2. It's when you get to 3 and 4. And it doesn't matter who it is. It could be Jerry Jeudy like it was on that play, which was an easy touchdown that, it's like Tua was celebrating as soon as the ball left his hands. He was like, this is stupid. It's not even, it doesn't matter who it is. It could be Waddle. It could be Ruggs. It could be Smitty. It could be Irv Smith. I mean, it could be a running back, for goodness sakes. How do you combat those guys? And that's where the matchup is so tantalizing for Alabama. Look, can you expect Tua to be, what was he, like 23 of 26 or whatever it was? No, you can't expect that again. But some of those concepts that worked against Oklahoma, because they tried everything. So some of those concepts that actually worked, I do expect to see Clemson try to emulate in terms of trying to bring pressure, making Tua escape the pocket. I don't know if they're going to spy him or anything like that, but I do wonder if Alabama can't establish the running game, which They probably can, but if they can't and they do become one-dimensional, I do wonder how it fares that way when Clemson tries to bring pressure. Because on the outside, I think they can hold up a little bit, but down the middle, linebackers in coverage, I don't think Clemson can hang with Alabama in any way. So that means when you do bring the pressure, you're forcing Tua to be that consistently accurate, which he was against Oklahoma. He did look healthy, all of those things. Thankfully, nobody's talked about Tua's health. That got really played out leading up to the playoff game. So I just wonder, can he be that accurate again? I think that's a big key in this game because Clemson obviously has a better defense than Oklahoma. They're more equipped to stop the run, and they do have a couple of guys in the secondary, mainly AJ Terrell, that I think can hold up. But as we said to start off this explanation, it's not about locking up one guy. It's about containing wide receiver 2, 3, 4, the tight end, backs out of the backfield, things like that. So I do think the onus will be on Tua's accuracy, but also on the coaching staff for creating those matchups. I mean, Jerry Jeudy as the number 3 receiver to clinch it is something that's not going to get talked about beyond this podcast, but that was a crafty move. We've seen Jeudy in the slot. We hadn't seen Jeudy at number 3 very much. So I thought those adjustments actually worked well for Alabama because, it got a little dicey there, just a little bit. You mentioned Alabama being sloppy. The penalties were immense. The Alabama secondary did not have a good game from the linebackers back in coverage, and that was one of the elements that we worried about for Alabama going into that game against CeeDee Lamb and those guys. Heck, Hollywood Brown didn't even have a catch, and it didn't matter. Oklahoma was still very much in the game there. So I think Alabama's safeties and Clemson's safeties in coverage both will be focal points of this game. And the more I look at those two defenses, I think which of these starting safeties hold up better in coverage could be another big determining factor into who could win this game because Xavier McKinney didn't play very well in the semifinal. Deontay Thompson got beat over the top. Tanner Muse for Clemson has been up and down all year in coverage. He's more of a hybrid guy who's more comfortable in the box. So I just think both safety groups have left something to be desired from a pure coverage standpoint over the last game and a half, 2 games. So I think that's where there could be some vulnerabilities on each side. So again, accuracy with these two guys is going to be at the forefront of the discussion, and these are probably the 2 most accurate quarterbacks in the country. So I see a lot of even keel in this matchup. Again, can either team establish a consistent running game? Because I think lost in the Clemson Notre Dame situation is the fact that Clemson didn't establish a running game there, and they still should have beaten Notre Dame by much more. And we can all agree, I would imagine, that Notre Dame has a much better defense than Oklahoma. So I wonder, Clemson has showed they can play that game. We know Alabama can play the game without a running back and without establishing a run. Now Clemson has shown us that as well. There really wasn't another game where I thought Clemson was unable to get Etienne going early, unable to get Choice and Feaster going early. But the Notre Dame game was it. They dealt with some adversity. They adjusted well with the quick hitters and the vertical pushes, and I thought that was going to be key for Lawrence's development because the narrative against Clemson was, who the hell have they played? Who have they played all year to get to this point? It's another kind of tired storyline. This has been the number 2 team in the country the last, 4 or 5 years. So you would think we would be beyond that. But heck, people still wonder who Bama has played, right, in the national narrative. But that was one of the questions coming in with Clemson. They obviously faced a very good defense, the best defense they've faced up until this point, and they couldn't establish the running game and still should have run away with the game even more than they did. So I thought that was impressive with both the coaching staff at Clemson and Trevor Lawrence himself. So I think both of these quarterbacks will push the ball vertically, and these safeties, these non-starting cornerback guys, the nickelbacks included, will have a lot of onus on them because these interior receivers, whether you're talking for Alabama, Jalen Waddle, Henry Ruggs, Irv Smith, and the running backs for Clemson, you're talking Hunter Renfrow, Amari Rogers, some classic slot receivers, and their running backs can catch the football out of the backfield as well. The only difference is that they don't establish the tight end as much. The interior passing game, I think, is going to be huge in this game. We expect excellent play on the edge on both sides, but the interior guys, I think, have more vulnerability. I don't think the Clemson linebackers cover well. I don't think the Alabama linebackers cover well. And I think that's where some of the matchups can be won and lost. And again, that's where it points to a lot of parallels in this game for me as I take a deeper look. But there's no doubt that Alabama in its last couple of games have not brought A games and still have won victories against good teams. Obviously against Georgia, not Bama's A game in any way. And then against Oklahoma, maybe offensively the A game early, defensively not the A game late, penalties mixed in, which is never a Nick Saban point of happiness. So I think that's good news for Alabama because you're not going to play as sloppy on the field with drop passes and missed assignments like you did against Georgia, and you're not going to play as sloppy mentally with penalties like you did against Oklahoma. So you expect Alabama to come out sharp no matter what tonight. So I think that's a big advantage for Alabama just by the odds, right? The odds say Bama can't do that 3 games in a row sloppy either physically or mentally. So I do think that's a big advantage early on for Clemson, or for Alabama, excuse me. For Clemson, weather the early storm because Alabama's going to come out sharp in this game, 100%. So if Clemson can avoid the Oklahoma start, I think they've got a shot to stay in the game the entire time, because that is another thing we haven't seen from Clemson. Can they come back down double digits against a good team? They haven't been in that position, just like Alabama hadn't before the SEC title game. So there's a lot of parallels here between these two teams, but I do expect Alabama to be the sharper team out of the gates, at least tonight.
Yeah. So my next question will be with the absence of one, being questionable and being kind of still day to day. I haven't seen anything today. I haven't really looked for it today, but I'm assuming that Christian Miller is going to be limited, if not a no-go. I would look for me, I would look for like a LeBron Ray and those guys on the interior to get more rotation. But who would be kind of your replacement for Miller as that outside guy?
I think you could see LeBron Ray standing up some. I know a lot of fans want Ayabi Anoma in there just from a pure pass rusher standpoint, but I think to get to Trevor and to pressure him and to bother him, I think it's got to be more on the interior. So I think you go bigger, if anything. So I think you go with more of a LeBron Ray than necessarily a speed, edge, finesse pass rusher like we think Ayabi Anoma is at this point in time. So I lend towards going bigger, not to mention you want to stop the run.
You stop run, yeah.
Right. This isn't Oklahoma where they're going to pass to set up the run. Now, Clemson wants to run the football. I think that's another misconception because Trevor Lawrence has been lauded so much. They're not throwing it 50 times a game. He doesn't have near the attempts per game of a Kyler Murray, of one of these Big 12 teams. They want to run the football and establish that running game. Now, when they don't, they'll throw it.
1,500 yards.
Right. They want to run the football. So I would lend towards bigger players for Alabama in general. And not to mention, look, the threat of Trevor Lawrence athletically is not what it was with Deshaun Watson. Everybody knows that. So when you played against Deshaun, you saw Nick Saban adjusting, right? You saw, okay, smaller guys who are built for more space. Get a Rashaan Evans in there on the edge instead of a Dalvin Tomlinson, let's say. That's not the case against Trevor Lawrence. He is mobile. He'll keep the defense honest. He'll pull that read option more than a Jake Fromm would, more than most guys who are considered pocket passers, but obviously not Deshaun Watson athletically. So I would be inclined for Alabama to play bigger, if anything. Use LeBron Ray in addition to those 3 down linemen as opposed to more of a Yabi Anoma type. Anthony Jennings on the other side, one of the best unsung heroes on this team the last couple of years for Alabama, can set the edge, can rush the passer as well. But when Lawrence has looked like a freshman, it's been that interior pressure. It's been bigger guys who are able to collapse the pocket now instead of guys coming around the edge. He's fine stepping up. He's fine reversing out of the pocket, throwing on the run. It's when he gets that immediate pressure where he's like, holy crap, which is what most quarterbacks will tell you anyway. So I think you go bigger, stronger at the point of attack if you're Alabama, if Christian Miller is unavailable or limited in some capacity. So I look for LeBron Ray to have a really big impact tonight if Alabama is going to go back to back and win another national championship. He's got to start turning the corner like we saw Quinnen Williams do this time last year. We need to see that from LeBron Ray, and I think it could start with opportunity, right? You got to get on the field, you got to play more, and I think the Christian Miller injury could lead to something like that for LeBron Ray. I'd go Ray before I go Anoma because of the matchup. Now, if it was Kyler Murray or if it's somebody else, maybe I go another way. I go with another athlete, another guy who's a conventional linebacker even, who has some pass rushing ability. But for this matchup, I go bigger, and I think of the run before the pass, and I go LeBron Ray. I think he's got to play big tonight.
All right. Since he's had some issues in pass coverage this year, do you think you could see maybe passing down, them rotate Matt down to outside and bring in another inside guy? Because you got to think that is your next inside guy better than your next outside guy? And
that's a good question.
If you put Mac out there, do you think they could see that? Because he's been good rushing the passer. You're just not in pass coverage.
Yeah, I mean, I think him or Dylan Moses they have pass rushing ability. There's no doubt about it. But again, I think it depends on the personnel. Clemson's going to one back you to death. I think Alabama can have more two-back sets in this game, but I don't expect Clemson to do much of that. Or maybe that's their wrinkle. I'm not sure. Hopefully I'm not, messing anything up. But I think you're going to get a lot of one back from Clemson, which means they want to get those receivers on the football field. So you could have situations where there is not a tight end. There is not a back asked to play one side or the other. And they like to leak that running back out against the blitz on third down situations. So I do think you can have success with a linebacker rushing the passer. As to which one, I think that's a game plan thing. You don't have to spy the same way you did last week. And we saw Mac Wilson with a lot of those responsibilities late in that game against Oklahoma. I thought on the Kyler Murray touchdown run, Mac got lost in the wash. He actually got a penalty because he ripped Creed Humphrey's helmet off, trying to stay with Kyler Murray. So I think you go away from some of those things, but I think they both have pass rushing ability. I think Mac more so as a blitzer, and Moses more so as a conventional edge guy if you want to go walk him down like you used to do with Rashaan Evans and Mosley and Reggie Ragland and a lot of guys who Alabama's had success doing that with. So I think that'd probably be my formula. If you want to blitz from depth, go with Mac. If you want to play it on the edge conventionally, go with Moses. But they both are athletic enough to stay on the field third downs, even in this game. But I do think that's going to be a contention point one way or the other in this game because, like you said, for their athleticism, the pass coverage from the linebacker position has not been good enough this year for Alabama. And I don't know how many homers we have listening to this today or right now, but I think even the most crimson-blooded American would admit that the pass coverage from those guys based on their athleticism has been subpar. So I think you have to utilize them in different ways in this game because Clemson is one of the few teams, Kev, where receiver number 3 and receiver number 4 can still get you. You're not worried about it against Oklahoma. You weren't worried about it against other teams, but Clemson can do it with Rodgers and obviously with Renfro. That goes without saying. So I do think that has to be a contention point. Maybe you bring in another defensive back instead, and one of those linebackers comes off the field. Maybe more Jared Maiden, maybe more Keaton Anderson. But Shaheem Carter will have to play big in this game. He's the theoretical matchup with Hunter Renfro and Amari Rodgers, depending on the strong side and depending on the look that Alabama goes out with. And Bama's used him as a blitzer as well. So maybe the immediate or the extreme wide-ranging blitz is what keeps Trevor Lawrence off guard because Notre Dame used a lot of interior blitzes, linebackers and safeties. Yeah. So maybe to combat that, Alabama goes more with the nickel guy, Shaheem Carter, or maybe a dime guy, Jared Maiden, who's played some physical football for Alabama. So Maiden could be kind of a sneaky X factor, I think, for Alabama if they want to go away from keeping both Moses and Mac Wilson on the field.
Yeah. So just like it here within the last couple minutes in the live chat, it blew up, and I know I'm not gonna go there, but couldn't Ben Davis help?
Who's that?
No, I mean I agree. I think that rolling down because he's been suspect. Mac has been suspect in pass coverage, and I think that with what we've seen Alabama do in the past, like with C.J. Mosley and all those guys, bringing them down and rushing the passer has been really successful for Alabama in the past. And like we said earlier, when Trevor Lawrence looks off is when you get somebody in his face, how most quarterbacks look when you get somebody in their face. But I did notice that, Notre Dame brought a lot of double A gap pressure. They brought a lot of stuff up the middle, and, it seemed to get him off. So, I mean, could be looking at a lot of pressure from the Alabama defense coming here at 8:00 tonight, whenever they kick off. So,
but then it goes right into the other side, though. All right, so if you're bringing more pressure, that means you're playing man in the back end with those guys on the field. So yeah, it's a beautiful test match, man.
Here you go. All right, do you feel better bringing more pressure and letting the defensive backs play more man, or do you feel better playing a more zone and not bringing as much pressure and letting, relying on the front three or four to get your pressure? Or do you feel better bringing pressure and letting them play man?
That's the game, man, because when you play zone and you're able to sit back, you're relying on your athletes, you're relying on their instincts, which Alabama has great long athletes. But there are things Clemson does well that combat the zone or man with those back shoulder throws to big wide receivers, and even Hunter Renfrow has a wider catch radius than people give him credit for. So I do think that sitting in a zone with Trevor Lawrence mentally pretty sharp is tough. I think you got to make him make perfect throws in man coverage against your bigger corners. Savion Smith, Pat Surtain, those guys have worked on back shoulder all week long. You can't combat or defense a perfect throw. That's true. But you got to make them do it. Just like we said with Tua. I think on the other side, I think Clemson has to make Tua be that accurate again. I think Alabama has to make Trevor Lawrence be that accurate again. They're both capable. I don't think that's an argument. But Trevor wants to push the ball down the field. That's when he's at his best. And when Bama busted against Oklahoma down the football field, a lot of it was when Kyler Murray had time and Bama sat back. So I think you force the issue with Trevor, play man, and you make him make those perfect throws. Will you give up some chunks in the process? Probably. But again, with the way Alabama's offense has been and the way it's been able to score points seemingly at will when it doesn't shoot itself in the foot, you take your chances there. So if I'm Nick, I go into this game almost like we were talking about with Oklahoma, but the difference is you don't have to worry about the quarterback bailing as much. Attack. Bama attacking Kyler Murray had him shook early in this game. It's kind of a lost narrative because they made this nice comeback, but first quarter Kyler Murray was awful against Alabama. They were hitting him. He was even tentative as a runner on design runs. We had never seen that really with Kyler Murray because Bama attacked him early on. I think you attack Trevor Lawrence. You make him make perfect throws with a smaller window to make those decisions. I think that's how I would combat it. I think Bama's corners, even the third and fourth one, we talked about already with Carter, maybe Maiden, these guys are long enough. They were just challenged so much back shoulder with both man and zone looks that I think it was kind of the perfect lead up to this game. Although the Clemson wide receivers are a better brand than the Oklahoma ones. They're bigger, they're longer, they have wider catch radiuses. So I just think, or is it radii? Is it radii? Catch radii? I don't know. We're overthinking it. I think these receivers.
I didn't do good in geometry.
These Clemson wide receivers on the edge, Higgins and Jay Ross, they're just built for the back shoulder. That's what they're built for. They're 6'3 plus, long, great ball skills, awareness, all of that. They're built for that. So it's harder to deal with. but you expect Alabama's athletes to be able to pressure Trevor better than Notre Dame did. So make him be that much better. I'd go after him almost all day long, provided you could stop the run game. And that's the biggest difference between Oklahoma and Clemson. Clemson's going to run the football. They've got the best back in the country that nobody talks about. That's the biggest difference. You have to blitz to pressure, but you also have to be aware of the running game as well. But I would make Trevor heated from all angles. Mix it up, but let those corners play man. You give up 20 yards at a time here and there, but in exchange, you may get a turnover. You may get some extra sacks. Trevor's got some greedy in him too now. We talked about it, greedy Tua this year at times, holding the ball a little too long. Trevor has that. Trevor trusts his arm. He's a confident kid. So I think you play to that and you rush him, and you could get some, at a minimum, you can get some big sack totals, maybe him throwing from angles and launch points that aren't ideal, despite a kid being 6'6" and having a strong arm and all of that. You still, if those guys are throwing back shoulder, you give your secondary that much more time, or off his back foot, I should say, you give the secondary that much more time to adjust. And Alabama's guys, say what you want about them in the back end, they've been in position at corner all year long. Maybe haven't made as many plays on the football as they should, but they've been in position, which when you're going against these guys, that's step one. So you make Trevor be perfect. You pressure him into it. I would play man and just try to light him up as much as possible and fluster him like Notre Dame couldn't.
Yeah. I knew I'd get a good defensive answer out of that one. But yeah, the pressure is key. The pressure is key, obviously, and we're gonna probably say it a couple more times before we're over today. The pressure on Trevor Lawrence is key, and that's gonna be kind of where win-loss comes for me, is pressure. And can they get it up? Can they get it? Can they affect him enough to win this game? Can they make him make bad throws? Can they sack? Can they get to him? Which I think they can. And all of that stuff. And then now you're gonna go after him. So you're gonna put your guys in man coverage, and for that you're gonna have to have Surtain have a better game than he had against Oklahoma.
100%.
But he's shown that he can play that better game this year. He's had one full kind of rough game, but even then he still played well, but just got exposed as the freshman that he is, kind of every freshman that has significant playing time at some point during the year gets exposed to. So with that being said, he's got to have a good game, and the rest of the defensive backfield has to have a good game if you're gonna bring pressure. So that'll be interesting to see how that backfield steps up, and if they allow them to bring pressure like we think that they should. So I'll be interested to see that. So yeah, we're going. We've been in. We kind of talked national championship for a while. Let's give these guys some good Bama news on the recruiting front and stuff like that. Once again, John was at Under Armour last week for Under Armour practices and Under Armour game. So that being said, I know me and you talked earlier about kind of where some of these guys are on the Bama front, and who would be Alabama's biggest mover for you that came out of Under Armour?
Oh, you're gonna love this answer. It's got to be Darian Dalcourt.
Yes.
Yeah, he was steady. He was steady, and I think in this class with interior guys, when it's center guards, we've had a very clear structure of how we've attacked it, right? In terms of talking about it. It's been Clay Webb, it's been William Putnam, even Zeke Correll got a lot of pub this past week, but Darian Dalcourt was more steady than Zeke. Legitimate center. He worked at it as a senior over at St. Francis, and that was purely for college. So shout out to St. Francis Academy for letting their best
letting their man do that. Yeah,
the center. Most teams wouldn't do that. They're like, screw you. We're trying to win ball games on Friday nights. So shout out to them for that. And shout out to Darian, because that was obviously a sacrifice. He probably had a little bit less accolades because he was playing a new position, things like that. So you already see some selflessness from the kid. But man, steady as can be at Under Armour. I thought him and Carell were probably the two best interior guys outside of Kenyon Green, who played a lot of guard. He was the best lineman, period. Texas A&M signee, who Bama made a run at late, under the radar, by the way. But I thought Darian Dalcourt, first of all, body looks great. 100% in shape. This kid is ready to play. And I know Bama hasn't signed a lot of center types and guys who have center experience in the last couple of classes beyond Dalcourt and Emil Ekiyor, who flipped from Michigan in the last class. Don't be surprised if Dalcourt is right there or has a chance to even pass up Ekiyor. They're two different guys. I think Ekiyor is more of your classic center, old school, bigger, wider, one gap guy, snap, get to your step and be done with it, down block, etc., which is fine in most pro style offenses. But as Alabama's offense opens up a little bit, communication becomes more pivotal from that center position, and the center moving and being able to be fluid with his blocks, getting to the second level, things like that are more imperative. I think Dalcourt could be in position to play a little bit sooner than Ekiyor based on the direction of this Alabama offense. When I first saw him in person, I said, wow, that kid, it's one of the top 5 looking kids here on the hoof. And then he played like it as well. Was never dominant, was never the flash guy who you said, man, that's a top performer at 24/7 Sports. We do Alpha Dog every day. He was never in the running for Alpha Dog. And a lot of other O-linemen were, whether it was Darnell Wright, Evan Neal, Kenyon Green, who we already mentioned. But he was always right under that group. And when you're talking about a center and you're talking about a guy who's playing against All-Americans less than a year into this position, that is very impressive. So I think he's the guy who was the most underrated Alabama commitment at the entire event. He's somewhere, like around 250 in the country. I think he's much more of a top 100, top 150 guy. So when you're talking about moving up 100 spots, that's a lot. And I think Darian Dalcourt solidified that all week. Some other guys who I think will hold their ground or move up. Evan Neal was great. I think he's solidified 5-star status. I think he is a right tackle down the line. I think Jordan Battle solidified his status as a top 50 defensive back. Brandon Turnage as a blue chip defensive back. I thought all those guys were rock solid. Shane Lee had a great Under Armour game. Only 2 players have had more tackles than him in an Under Armour All-American game. And one of them is Dylan Moses, who still has the record of 10 tackles in that game. So I thought he played well, just a classic interior guy, but he moves better every time we see him. He is more built for coverage than we thought the day he committed to Alabama, which made people say, what is Alabama going to do elsewhere at inside linebacker? Those questions are quelled a little bit more with watching Shane Lee at work. And Bama did sign Christian Harris, who had a good week over at the Army Bowl. But Dalcourt definitely on the way up. I thought those other guys held steady. You could see a slight slide from Justin Eboigbe, Christian Williams, maybe Will Reichard, who missed his only field goal attempt in the game, but nothing too drastic. I don't think anybody's going to lose a star coming off of this week. So the Bama guys played kind of like Bama guys. Amari Kite solidified his status as a top 100 offensive lineman. He owned Kayvon Thibodeau for an entire day. Which is impressive. Nobody else did that, not even Kenyon Green, who was the best lineman there. So I thought the Bama guys looked like Bama guys pretty much all week long.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what you expect from Bama.
Like, how about the O-line class, Kev? Why don't you dig into that group?
Well, I mean, I've said it multiple times that I love this Alabama offensive line class. I thought there might have been a gray shirt in there with Tanner Bowles, but with him signing his letter of intent during the early signing period, I love this Alabama offensive line class. And the more and more that I watch them, and the more and more that I watch stuff like Under Armour performances, and I already kind of knew where you were going to go with that one with Dalcourt, because I mean, he just had a really good week, in my opinion. I think me and you talked about it earlier. Like Evan Neal lost 1, maybe 2 reps in 3 days of one-on-ones.
Yeah, so, I mean, I had him. I charted him 15-2 at worst in his one-on-one.
At worst. So
that video is available right now, by the way, on CBSSports.com, 247sports.com, BamaOnline.com, etc.
Yeah. So I mean, there you go.
Check it out. Chart it yourself.
You want to check that out. And we're not talking about like going against scrubs. I mean, there was a stonewall of Sopsher during those reps. So I mean, and he was playing out of position at guard at that time. So you're talking about a kid that, you know, no one projects as a guard, but
not anymore.
Steps in, yeah, not anymore now that he's lost some weight. If he would still be as big as he used to be, I'd say, slap his ass at guard and we'll call it a day. But he moves like a tackle, even though he's still a little overweight. For me, he would be a little overweight. So I would still like to see him at you know, I'd like to see him at like 325, 330, maybe even if they could get him down to like 315. Now you're talking about just an absolute unit. And and then going down the line from left to right, it would be Amari Kite. Then you go Tanner Bowles, Darian Dalcourt, and then you got Evan Neal at right tackle. So, I mean, this group is just – it's impressive. It's, you know – and I think you were saying earlier, I think if I'm not mistaken, Dalcourt's 257, I think.
In his rankings?
Yeah, I think he's like 257 or something like that.
We're going to fix that.
Because that was from writing my sleeper article at crimsonandblueships.com that – you know, out of my top sleepers in the class, he was one of them. And, you know, you know, when he committed and we did our show, when he committed, I was like, maybe
we were watching junior tape though, right?
Yeah, we were watching junior tape, and I was like, you know, maybe they'll gray shirt him. Oh, I'm sorry, he's 331 in the composite. 329 on 24/7 Sports. So
yeah, he'll be a top 247 guy.
He's not even a top 300 guy right now, which is insane. But you know, I think that and yeah, Pierce Quick. Pierce Quick could play the other guard.
Think about that. We're not even talking about Pierce Quick.
Yeah, look at that. I went through a whole offensive line and didn't mention Pierce Quick. Good God. So Pierce Quick would be my either right or left guard. Put him at left guard. Put him at right guard, and then put Bowles at left guard. So you know that's a good offensive line.
It's the best line class in the country right there.
Right now, I mean,
yeah.
Now get them in there because some of them are projects. Amari Kite's a project. He's going to need a year. But once he has that year, who knows what that kid could be? You can't teach the intangibles that he walks off the bus with. Just saying. My man looks like $1 million walking off the bus.
Yeah.
You put him on in high school, you definitely have him come off the bus first.
Yeah, but, I think they moved in this morning too, so.
Oh yeah, nice.
Yeah, those guys wanted to play in the Under Armour game, but they're there now, I believe. So they'll be able to watch the game with the support staff who doesn't get to travel. And their future teammates. So that'll be pretty cool. Yeah.
So there you go. Those guys would be there. And but yeah, this offensive line class could be something special moving forward. We talk about this offensive line group right now, how there's going to be how I think there's going to be an NFL guy sitting on the bench, and I still think there's an NFL guy sitting on the bench in this offensive line group that's there right now. And then you add these 5 in there, there's definitely going to be NFL guys sitting on the bench. If I'm whoever is going to be the offensive line coach at Alabama, I'm just
like, what a blessing to walk into that.
Yeah, like
I got to coach these guys.
Like, what more could you really ask?
Not to mention, you're going to get Leatherwood back. You're going to get Wills back. You know,
you're getting
you're going to get Matt Womack back.
Yeah.
Who knows? I mean, who knows about Jonah Williams, man? We don't know his family situation. You know, there's no guarantees in this thing. Derek Brown for Auburn was a first-round pick, and he decided to come back. I mean, you never know. You never know. Yeah. The point is, you're going to get a lot of blue chip guys and a lot of guys with experience coming back in. You may get Deontay Brown back, pending the NCAA situation, I guess.
NCAA, yeah, pending whatever's going on there. So, you know, you're talking about maybe one of the best position rooms overall position rooms in the country.
Right.
Let alone, I mean, just I'm talking offense, defense, special teams, anything. You're talking one of the best position rooms in the country with that Alabama offensive line. So I'm really excited to see where that offense
technically still in it for Darnell Wright too.
Technically,
you probably took a hit with losing Key, but probably you're still in it technically, I should say, for Darnell Wright, who's got a bunch of visits left, so you never know.
Yeah, and my opinion now on Darnell Wright after watching him at Under Armour is I really like Darnell Wright, but Darnell Wright's a guard.
Yes, he is.
He's very aggressive, which you like, but he's very aggressive in pass protection, which you don't like because he gets overextended. He tries to make first contact, which you can't do playing offensive line. You have to let the defense come to you, and one-on-ones is a defensive drill anyway, but you got to let them come to you. You can't lunge at them. That's how you get made into a GIF, get put on Twitter, and you just look bad. So, Darnell Wright could be the cherry on top of this banana split that is amazing of this Alabama class. So, yes.
Did you eat lunch yet?
No,
okay, me neither.
I've been up and I took a 30-minute nap when I got home from work a little bit ago, so I haven't eaten yet. If you can't tell,
power through, baby, power through.
But yeah, I mean this offensive line, it's just, and then let's not even So we went offensive line class. Now let's go defensive line class. The defensive line class,
not terrible
either.
Imagine that.
Imagine that. The offensive line class and the defensive line classes for Alabama are both really freaking good. Who would have thunked it? Not me. Just kidding. It was me. So you got, top 10 player in the country, Antonio Alfano, he's versatile. He can play multiple positions. He can stand up. He can put his hand in the dirt, and he showed why he was a top 10 player at the All-American Bowl. I'm sure most of you have probably seen the Hank South tweets and all of that of him dominating one-on-one reps and dominating in the team periods. He's just one of those guys where you watch him play and you're like, good God, like, can he get here faster? Can we put a Bama jersey on
today or tomorrow right now? So yeah.
Put a Bama jersey on him right now. Then you got Justin Aboigbe. Didn't flash as much as would have liked at Under Armour week, according to you. Correct? Am I correct on that one?
Yeah, but I think we learned that he's a tackle, and that was one of the questions with him, and probably lessens the importance of landing another interior guy down the stretch. I think we pretty much have it down now that he's going to be an interior guy. I mean, he's 275 or so right now, has a great body. He looks like Alfano. He looks like he could play inside or out. But Alfano's a little more fluid. I do think both end up on the interior down the line, but I think if Aboigbe starts on the interior, Alfano ends up on the interior later. I think he could play a little bit more 5-tech than Aboigbe. And Byron Young's in that same group too. I mean, these guys are all 6'4"-ish, 275, 285-ish, all three of them. And they all could be 3-techs with a little bit of 5 sprinkled in, but I think Aboigbe, just among the other two guys, is a little more stiff than Alfano and then Byron Young, even though Young is the heaviest. I think Young is a little more fluid than Aboigbe. Doesn't mean Aboigbe's stiff in general, but compared to the other two, just a little bit. So I think that relegates him more to 3 technique from the jump and probably throughout his Alabama career. But all three guys can play inside and out, and they're all damn good top 100 guys.
Yeah, I wish I could show that clip from Alabama Mississippi All-Star Week where Byron Young looks like he's a freaking safety rushing the people.
His athleticism at like 290 is I mean, it's really weird. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean he made a move that like I'm watching it and I had to watch it about 5 or 6 times before I was like, wait, what did he just do? Like
Yeah,
what?
he bends like Kevin Harris bends, 70 pounds lighter.
Yeah. So then keeping going with the defensive line class, Kevin Harris, who is he's a very raw but very talented kid. You get him in there with Coach Cool, I think that kid could be really really good. He was another one of my sleepers, even though he's 113 in the country, but he's very raw and just once he gets some direction and where he's going, like once he gets that direction, I think Kevin Harris has the ability to be a very very good football player. And you got King. Let's not forget King Makuta.
Yeah, I think they're similar. I think both of them need some time, but
Yeah.
they have the makeup of what you want. You're talking King Makuta legit 6'5".
Yes.
Harris legit 6'3.5", 6'4", both with frames that can hold more weight. And those two guys are energy, effort guys, program guys that are going to make you better in practice. And eventually it'll translate to games. A lot of Christian Miller in those two. Christian Miller's a 5th-year guy now. It took some time. He was a rail coming out of Columbia, South Carolina, Spring Valley High School. But when you put the weight on him, you redshirted him, you let him grow into the system. He's a captain. He's an example guy, and I think these guys had that example guy in them as well. So they're not as flashy as Chris Bogle, who you picked up over the weekend on the edge. Not as big and ready to play physically as some of the other guys we talked about, Boygby and Byron Young and Alfano, certainly. But in a year, 2, 3 years, those are program guys, example guys, leader guys who I think will be stalwarts on the roster down the line. So you got a little bit of everything on the D line. We hadn't even got to DJ Dale, who's kind of a classic interior occupier, who's quicker than he looks.
He was my next stop on the defensive line class, and DJ Dale is your more true inside. Could be a nose, could be a the 3 technique. But he is definitely your inside guy. He's 6'4", like 325. And I think he might be even a little underrated for the way he performed as a senior. He had a very good senior year at Clay Chalkville.
But my man was a Wildcat quarterback.
That's amazing. That's every fat man's fantasy and dream right there. Like, you live vicariously through the kids that get that chance. But yeah, no, I mean, he had a very good year at Clay Chalkville. He is your interior guy that you picked up in this class, and you could be adding another in Ishmael Sopsher. But we'll see how that goes.
And Nathan Pickering's still out there, technically.
And technically, the Mississippi State commit Pickering is still out there, who I know Bama would really like to have in that class and have still been making a run at.
Yeah, I mean, he keeps saying Bama's number 2, and he's going to take that official later this month. So that's about all you can ask for from him.
Yeah,
he basically says Alabama's the school I'm going to if something happens with Mississippi State. Now, what defines something happening? We have no idea. Coaching change, drama, whatever. But we do know Alabama's been number 2 for him for like 6-7 months at this point. So it does seem like if he doesn't go to Mississippi State, he's going to end up at Alabama. He's taking officials to Alabama, LSU, Florida, Oregon. I mean, this kid's going everywhere this year. But Mississippi State does get that last visit. So a lot of people think that will reel him back in after the flirtations elsewhere. But you never know until you know, right? And with an unsigned defensive lineman like Byron Young, Bama's going to keep other guys warm, whether it's Pickering, Sopsher, Jaquay Sorrells, etc. They're going to keep several defensive linemen warm, even though they're very happy with the group they have now. If they just sign Byron Young and don't add anyone, they're cool with that, and that might be the most likely scenario. I do think Byron Young is very solid. He just hadn't taken visits. He wanted to take them during the season, but he couldn't. And I've been to his hometown. Not a lot of roads going into that thing. Don't blame him for not taking some of those visits, especially when the weather got crazy there at the end of the fall. So he's going to take them in January instead. And I do think it's going to be very hard for anybody to flip them. If someone does, I actually think LSU has a good shot. I think LSU's impressed him for a long time. It's the first camp he went to. He likes Coach O, which who doesn't? So I do think LSU's a small threat. But if you talk to anyone in Mississippi, they're going to go to Mississippi State and Ole Miss. But I think, like we've seen with Nakobe Dean and like we've seen with Darius Jones, Cam Akers a few years back, kids are starting to leave Mississippi. They're starting to feel better about leaving Mississippi. That early notion is starting to go the other way, which is not great news for Matt Luke and Joe Moorhead. But I do think he ends up out of state as well. But if it's not Alabama, I think it'll be LSU. But I do think it'll remain Alabama for the record for Byron Young, who may be the best one when all is said and done. I mean, that's how good this D-line group is. He may be better than Alfano down the line, but obviously Alfano closed his career so impressively that it's pretty hard to ignore. So Alfano, breaking news, is going to finish higher than Byron Young in the rankings, though I think it's very, very close.
Yeah, and then I mean, we win. I forgot my man Braylon Ingram, who's
well, he's the one who's kind of different, right?
Yeah,
compared to the rest.
He's more of a true edge-setting defensive end. I think he'll play. I think he could be that. 5 to 7. He's a more true in the middle type guy. It was a really impressive tape out of St. Thomas, which going into South Florida again and pulling kids out of South Florida is just,
two St. Thomas kids with Jordan Battle.
Two St. Thomas kids, and then you got Bogle out of South Florida. I mean,
yeah, Fort Lauderdale, right down the road. Yeah, shocking to see them doing well.
Yeah, so
that was a big recruiting win. Like a lot of folks, I thought he was going to Miami. A lot of folks, when Manny Diaz got that job at the U, a lot of folks thought that would clinch Bogle.
Yeah. I thought it did. I really I made my prediction in our prediction articles, and I said he was gonna stay at the crib and try to make Miami great again.
Yeah, Craig Kulagowski and really Joe Panunzio, who's not getting any credit on the trail. I mean, he's helped Bama own South Florida even after Mario Cristobal went to Oregon, which is not something a lot of people expected. Now, Miami being terrible has helped. And Florida State being terrible has helped, and Florida not recruiting Miami well. Those things have all helped Alabama and Georgia and Ohio State and Clemson, the schools that go down to Dade County and Broward County and have success. But you still got to go out and put the man hours and establish those relationships. And Panunzio on this Alabama staff has twice the amount of South Florida relationships as everybody else. So he deserves more credit than certainly we give him for the Bama impact in South Florida and the Bama ability to close in South Florida, flipping Jordan Battle, landing Bogle over Miami, maintaining the other guys, getting in on Ingram, who was a guy that did not have a great junior year at another school. So that eval and consistency I thought was really big for Bama. So Panunzio and Kulagowski, who obviously was the Miami D-line coach, both deserve a lot of credit here, maybe more than they get publicly.
Yeah, that was a really big out of South Florida getting him. When I say that, I mean Bogle, because like I said, I thought the lazy hire of Manny Diaz was. I thought that was gonna seal it for him. I just want to go through one more class with you because it's another really impressive, another really impressive class that Alabama has put together, and it's this defensive back class. I know that you're my defensive back guy, but this defensive back class that Alabama has kind of quietly put together is really impressive as well. Starting with Jeff Carter, out of Texas. And Jordan Battle out of South Florida as well. Those two guys are your two highest rated out of the defensive back class. What's your take on those guys and where do you see them as projected for the next level? I know that Carter's more of kind of a corner. I think Battle's more of a safety. But yeah, if you want to do DBs for me since I did trenches.
Yeah. Man, I like the pure corners and I like the combo guys. That's what this class is all about for Alabama. There are not a lot of guys who are gonna go play safety day one and never move from there. And that's a good thing. That's a very good thing for Alabama. I think everybody currently committed. What is it, 5 or 6 right now?
Yeah.
Marcus Banks over the weekend out of Texas. You mentioned Jeff Carter, also out of Texas. Those, I think, are your pure cornerback types. And then you go to safety combo guys, DeMarco Helms, Christian Williams, Brandon Turnage, Jordan Battle. All 4 of those guys can play another position. That's crazy to think about. Helms could be a wide receiver. Heck, Turnage could still be a wide receiver. He's still talking to Alabama about that, like Trevon Diggs was coming out. And then Jordan Battle is maybe the best safety in the country, not named Dax Hill, who also can play corner every day, every down. I mean, that's an unbelievable skill set. Big fan of him. Brandon Turnage, intellectually, one of the more impressive guys I've covered that has gone to Alabama. And then Helms, big, strong ball skills, safety, wide receiver type. Just a great group of guys. And Christian Williams still committed. I think a lot of people are defaulting him out of the class, but y'all saw that picture I tweeted after the Under Armour game. Christian Williams organized that thing. So I know it's a two-way street in terms of you stay in the class in terms of your interest and the school's interest. I get that, but from Christian's perspective, he's an Alabama commit. He's a firm Alabama commit. He wants to be seen as an Alabama commit. So I think the foregone conclusion that he's gone is still a little premature. Now, is it creeping up towards likely versus unlikely? Probably, just because of the numbers. But don't count him completely out until it happens. I just want to caution Bama fans there. He's another combo guy. I think he's a Shaheem Carter corner safety hybrid who probably ends up playing a little bit more inside than out at the next level, whether it's Bama, LSU, Oregon, or wherever the hell he ends up. But I like this DB group a lot because of the versatility. And if you're not going to be versatile, you need to be pure. And that's where Jeff Carter and Marcus Banks are. Pure corner, 6 foot, can fly, came up in Texas, great competition. They've showed it at every element that we can evaluate. Camps without pads, full padded camps, all-American games, all of those things. Scooby actually was banged up. Scooby Carter had a shoulder surgery. There's a couple of Bama commitments that have injuries that are underlying. Braylon Ingram had surgery to end his season, and so did Jeff Carter. Nothing's supposed to linger into next year, but it is worth mentioning, and that's why we didn't see those guys at All-American events. Keelan Robinson injured as well, speaking of guys who didn't sign, but he's kind of got that moniker on him. That's kind of interesting to me, but story for another day. But this DB group, I think you got your pure corners and you got your combo guys, and you let the chips fall where they may. I think Jordan Battle is probably the class of the group, but it's good to know that conversation is a deep one. You can make the argument for Banks. You can make the argument for Turnage. You can make the argument for Carter, who I believe is the highest ranked of all the DBs committed, but several top 100 guys, most of them actually, more in the top 100 than not. And that's about as elite as it gets. That's what the D-line group has, and that's what the O-line group has. And that's, again, you're starting to see why Alabama's run away with this number 1 class. They've got a little bit of everything, very strong position groups, O-line, D-line, secondary, which is, hey, when Nick Saban's your coach, that's what you want. Heck, you even got a 2 quarterback class for Alabama. So there's depth everywhere in this big class, which is what we expected after a small class last year, which was way down there at like number 6 in the country. Way down by Bama standards. Way
down at 6.
Way down at 6. That's where Bama fans are enjoying right now. Way down at 6, playing for another natty against a team that is dynasty worthy, that is not going to get credit for it because I was going to keep picking them off every other year. That's where Bama is right now. Enjoy it, guys. Enjoy it. No matter what happens tonight, just enjoy it. It's amazing.
Yeah, so they got 24 signed, 4 more committed, which will bring a total to 28. So we've said that number's going to be, in that 27, 28 range.
Mm-hmm.
So with 24 signed, 4 committed, where does anyone else fit into this class as far as they're in the race for, Sopsher and Henry Toa and these guys. Like, where do these top remaining guys, where do they fit in, or do they even fit in to this class if you sign all four of your committed guys?
Well, look, that's the thing. I mean, you can't, if you're signing all four guys, you're at 28. Where's their space? I don't think it's logical to think that there would be space if you sign all four guys. Now, can somebody declare that you didn't plan for preseason? Yeah, maybe it's Deontay Thompson, Quinnen Williams, Josh Jacobs. Maybe all these guys weren't accounted for, so there's some wiggle room there with a gray shirt, back counters, all these gray area things that Nick Saban specializes in. Sure, there is a way around it if you want to go maybe one more or maybe even two more, but you can't. I mean, this class can't be 30 plus. It can't. So I envision some movement with these verbal commitments. I think Christian Williams, Keelan Robinson are obviously the two that seem the most likely to move right now, one way or the other. Staff initiated, kid initiated. We all know the game by now. So those are the two wiggle room guys, I think. Byron Young's a big priority. I think Alabama holds on to him. Chris Bogle just committed 2 days ago. So now he is a South Florida kid, and he has said if he does take one more official, it will be to Florida. So you never know. There is some momentum with Dan Mullen. Not necessarily in the state, but just in general. They've recruited very well, 10-win season, all that stuff. Y'all are aware. That could be something to watch down the line, especially given how public Bogle was with how long it took to come to the Alabama decision. According to Chris, he didn't come to it until the game, until that day on Saturday, which it's not the best news when you've already taken that visit, right? Not the best news for that winning school. So there will be some element of holding off that Alabama will have to execute, but there's still in-home visits and things like that that can be arranged for Alabama to go see him and solidify him. So in terms of those four guys and any wiggle room, I think Robinson may be the most likely, then Williams, then Bogle, and then Young. I think there's a chance all four sign, and there's a chance none of the four sign, but obviously there's somewhere in the middle is what's going to happen here. Now, if Ishmael Sopsher calls you, are you going to say no? I don't think so. If Henry Toto calls you, are you going to say no? I don't think so. But outside of those two guys, it seems like you're on the outside looking in for almost everyone else. Most people expect Nathan Pickering to stick with MSU. Most people expect Darnell Wright to end up somewhere other than Tuscaloosa, especially following the Brent Key news. So I don't think there's going to be as much drama down the stretch with Alabama as people are anticipating, outside of one or two guys moving from this current commitment list, and then you replace them with guys who are frankly ranked higher. So I don't think it's going to be very dramatic down the stretch. Signing 24 was huge. I think signing some of the guys you signed was bigger than anything else. Getting that Trey Sanders LOI, getting that Justin Eboigbe LOI, there was some drama there. Flipping Carter, flipping Battle, getting their LOIs after that point, huge. Signing Turnage after the Ole Miss push, that was huge. I think more of the drama was behind Alabama once signing day came and went. I think these guys are going to be a little bit more status quo. Either Bama's going to push them out and replace them, or they're not. I think it's pretty simple down the stretch. I think, again, that's the order of likeliness in terms of guys who won't end up in the class. I think it starts with Robinson, then it goes to Williams, then probably Bogle, and then Young. I think Young is the most likely to sign with Alabama of these four uncommitted or unsigned, prospects. But again, there's a chance all four sign, and this is all just a moot point and just posturing with certain targets still out there. But Alabama is, of course, going to still recruit other guys. DeAndre Glass, the running back, I would imagine Bama keeps warm. We mentioned Sopsher and Pickering and Sorrells and Darnell Wright, To'o. Those guys all stay warm from Alabama's perspective. There is a junior college linebacker who just decommitted from Tennessee that does hold a verbal offer from Alabama, Lakia Henry. Perhaps if Mac Wilson changes his mind and declares early, maybe a push for a JUCO linebacker. That's not out of the question. Alabama did offer before he picked Pruitt and Tennessee. So that's something that could be out there as well. That could be maybe the biggest wrinkle if something does happen, an unexpected early departure for Alabama. At this point, I think Quinnen Williams, Deontay Thompson, Josh Jacobs, all expected to leave. But if there's a wrinkle beyond that, Mac Wilson or somebody we're not even talking about, maybe then you could see a push that is to a name that we haven't spent time on today. I think otherwise it's going to be pretty status quo for Alabama. They will finish with the number one class. You could see movement with one or two guys, but I don't think you're going to see a mass exodus or a huge typical Nick Saban close where you're landing all these 5 stars on signing day. I don't see it at this point. I think those positions of need you've met. 2 quarterbacks, you got the D lineman, you got the O lineman, you got the secondary. Those were the positions of need. Could a wrinkle come in very late and you all of a sudden push again for a George Pickens or something like that? Maybe, but Akeem Dent told us Bama stopped talking to him. George Pickens told us Bama stopped talking to him. So I think you're getting a very clear message for the position groups that Bama's going to focus on. It's finishing up running back. It's finishing up this defensive line and maybe the offensive line, and that's kind of it.
Yeah, I agree. I think without Robinson signing, that leaves the door open because I do think he is the most likely to not be in the class, and that would
especially since you got Trey, right?
Yeah, because that would leave the door open for DeAndre Glass or really DeAndre Glass. But I'll be interested to see where they go with the last 4 with a couple of the guys that are still out there, just because I think that Toa Toa and Sopsher will be the last 2 real, and of course Darnell Wright will be the last 3 really that are uncommitted guys that Bama kind of makes a push for towards the end to wrap up their class if they don't sign some of these guys that are signed already. That are committed already. I'm sorry. But yeah, so that's our take on kind of the Alabama class guys. That way we got you some really good Bama information there, so that we don't.
They probably want more natty talk. I mean, we can do that too. I don't care.
But no.
There's some news today, man. There's some news going down last couple days, man.
News going down? What you got? Hit me with it.
When's the last time an Ohio State coach went to Michigan?
I don't know.
That's going down. That's going down right now. Greg Madison, a Michigan coach going to Ohio State, I should say.
Who's that?
That is Greg Madison leaving Michigan for Ohio State. And there's another report from 24/7 Sports that says Greg Schiano out at
I did see the Greg Schiano at Ohio State report.
Right. Yeah. So that's pretty interesting there. Didn't anticipate that on Natty Monday, but here we are. When's the last? I mean, it's like an Alabama coach going to Auburn or vice versa. That's
interesting. I don't know.
Yeah, that's really really interesting there, in my opinion. But getting back to the Natty, Kev, a couple things we haven't yet talked about. How about the weather? Isn't California supposed to be perfect? What is this? 2 days of rain going down?
I mean,
it's a little chilly. Media members are getting robbed at In and Out. Like, what is happening out there?
Oh, welcome to LA, son. No, I think it's. I know it's kind of ugly right now, and they've said it's been off and on rain over the last couple of days there in Santa Clara. But I think that what I've seen and what I've looked at, I think that we're supposed to get some clearing up as we move towards.
I know the tarp was on the field, like when we started the pod today.
Yeah.
The last tweet I saw had tarp on the field for whatever that's worth.
So, I mean, me and you have rolled out our fair share of tarps at Averett, but no, I mean the tarp's definitely a big deal because I don't think you're going to be able to get any helicopters into Levi Stadium to dry
just dry it up right quick.
But
so great.
The weather could play a factor because it did rain for the couple days leading up to the tarp getting put on the field, I believe. If I'm not mistaken, I think it rained.
I mean, all the reports I saw yesterday were just, these reporters were in jackets getting soaked.
Yeah. So
it was heavy rain for Cali. So.
Yeah. So you got rain the day before, and now the tarp gets put on. So, I mean, you could have a little sloppy field action going on, but, it could come down. That could make a difference because then you could see some slippage and stuff like that going on.
Who does that help, Kev? Who do you think?
Clemson because you expect the fast twitch out of the Alabama guys. You know, the explosion out of those receivers and stuff like that, coming out of cuts and stuff like that. So you know, you could see those guys slipping and falling coming out of breaks and stuff like that. So I think that, you know, I think a sloppy field might look better for Clemson, especially if they could establish a run game, and those bigger receivers aren't, you know, they're not as explosive and stuff, but you're not going to see. I think the explosiveness of Alabama and their receivers could be affected by the sloppy field.
Yeah, that's definitely a take I would agree with. I think Clemson it sounds weird, but Clemson is a little bit more built to play downhill than Alabama this year. It just is what it is. But like you said, those receivers, Clemson, bigger, longer, more methodical. Alabama's smaller, faster, quicker. So I think that favors Clemson to some degree. Some folks saying it cleared up. We're not sure. Obviously, I'm in Florida. I'm not there. I'm in the real Sunshine State. But that could be an interesting factor, and definitely not something we've talked about with this game. So just, I guess, something to keep a close eye on. And
I'm in Bay Area. Whoops.
Yeah,
Bay.
It's fine.
Oakland Sun.
It's fine.
O-Town.
Yeah, there's been some really interesting tweets and reports coming out of California, including people who don't even realize that Alabama's playing Clemson. I saw one. Ryan Brown from Jocks said that somebody thought Syracuse was playing for the Natty, which they did have a great year, and they did win 10 games. And they ran Dana Holgerson out of West Virginia, but not quite national champion level. They should have beat Clemson, though.
True.
They should have beat Clemson. Chase Bryce with the save there for the Tigers after they knocked Lawrence out of that game. It's like people forgot about that because all the other quarterbacks transferred.
Yeah.
Chase Bryce was like the fifth quarterback entering the season, and he beat Syracuse.
Yeah.
Kind of amazing.
Yeah. Good story.
Somebody tweeted, tired of you talking about Clemson. You are way overvaluing them. Terrible schedule. Bama rolls. Who the hell are we going to talk about?
I know.
They're playing Clemson.
There's 2 teams left.
Do we need to tell people that Tua throws very well? Do we need to remind people that Alabama has a 3-pronged rushing attack with 3 guys averaging more than 5 yards a carry when they do want to run the football? Do we have to remind folks that Deontay Brown is not out there and Lester Cotton is in? That's a narrative we played up all last week. Do we need to remind folks that Alabama has a young yet talented secondary? Linebackers that have flashed greatness and otherwise this year? Do we need to remind people that Quinnen Williams, who we talked about preseason as the breakout candidate, is the top defensive tackle in the country? If y'all need reminders at 1:50 p.m. Eastern on Natty Monday, not a good look for your fandom. So, not sure what you want us to talk about, but Clemson is the opponent, and it's 4 years in a row now. So, probably going to spend a lot of time on Clemson. I'm not sure where that comes from, but hey, whether I'm overvaluing them or not, we're going to talk about Clemson.
Because we talked about Alabama.
We talked about Oklahoma for like 3 shows last time. Like, what are we supposed to talk about?
So they're playing, guys. Like, I don't know what we're supposed to do.
I mean, we talked recruiting. Which is always fun.
Yeah, we spent like 30 minutes on recruiting. Like, come on, guys. Let's go.
Yeah.
We can talk about.
I think people are tired of me talking like Clemson is a good football team. I don't know what people think Clemson is, but
yeah,
it's like the whole thing like, oh, Bama hadn't played anybody, Clemson hadn't played anybody. Who cares, man? They're blowing everybody out, both teams. Who cares who they've played? They played a Power 5 schedule and won every game easily. Yeah. Clemson's won them more easily than Alabama, right?
Yeah. Hey, Here we go. I got a good one. We'll start going through the live chat, but I got a good one right here. DJ always comes with good stuff.
Let's do it.
How many first rounders are playing tonight?
Oh, man.
How many first?
So you're talking first rounders in this draft or period? Because if it's period, you're talking double digits.
Let's go first rounders in this draft, then we'll go first rounders, period.
All right, first rounders in this draft. Jonah Williams.
1.
Deontay Thompson.
2.
Quinnen Williams.
3.
Christian Wilkins.
4.
T. Higgins is a sophomore, right?
Yes.
All right. We don't know the status of a couple other guys. Damian Harris, maybe.
Maybe
Josh Jacobs, maybe. I mean, those are the type of running backs that we've seen go in the 20 to 32 range. Those balanced guys with not a lot of wear and tear on their bodies, who can play all 3 downs. And I think both Damian Harris and Josh Jacobs could potentially fit. So I think, let's say one of them becomes a first rounder. Let's just go with one.
Yeah. Sorry. So that's 5.
That's 5. I feel like I'm missing somebody. Who am I missing? Oh, well, Dexter. Well, he's not playing, but he's there. I think he's there. Is he there? He should.
Probably. Dabo had him at the Cotton Bowl. So
yeah, why wouldn't he be there? Yeah, Dexter Lawrence, obviously a first rounder. So that's 6.
Colin Farrell.
Farrell,
maybe.
Farrell over Bryant. So
yeah.
So we'll do the same thing we did with the running backs with those two. So we'll say one of them is a first rounder, one of them isn't.
So 7.
Whew. And I mean, I don't know if y'all have seen AJ Terrell, the corner for Clemson, but I like him a lot. He's actually kind of like the Bama corners, long, lean, ball skill, physicality guy. He's kind of like Pat Surtain and Savion. Just new age of corner that is built to come in and play some man, but really thrive in zone with the ability to come up and run support, play the ball deep, all those things. I think he's got a chance. He's a guy who I know from Atlanta. I remember him as a high school recruit. Bama really wanted him. He's legit 6'2". He's going to test well. I could see him playing. If he has a good game tonight and tests well, I could see him gaining some first-round traction. Let me see what year he is, because these Clemson guys are playing so early, like ATN and all these guys. They're just sophomores, so it's hard to remember what year these guys are. Yeah, so AJ Terrell is a third year. No, he's a second-year guy.
All right,
so he's a sophomore too.
So there's 7.
Yeah, so 7 for this year.
7 that we know that we can say like this year possibly that are eligible.
That are eligible right now. I mean, Irv Smith, I don't know, maybe.
Could sneak in.
Ross Pierce-Baker, maybe. With I think his center play this year is going to increase the hell out of his value.
Yes, very much.
So that, I mean, again, if teams are going to bank on guys late in the first round, Bama guys are usually a good pocket for those guys. That's your Ryan Kellys of the world got drafted. So I could see that happening as well. So at least a half dozen. A half dozen is very conservative, but it could be as many as 8 or 9 probably.
Yeah, and then
for this draft.
Yeah, now you're talking overall.
Oh man, easily double digits, right?
I was gonna say easily double digits, and probably pushing 15 to 20.
Yeah, I mean, just off the top of my head, guys who I could see in the first round. Period. Both quarterbacks, obviously. ETN. I could see. We just talked about Terrell. We just talked about. I mean, Pat Surtain is one of those guys. Xavier McKinney next year. I mean, there's who's to say that he won't be one of those guys. LeBron Ray has the potential to be Quinnen Williams of next year, in my opinion. Dylan Moses, hello. there's a lot of who T. Higgins, Justin Ross. You know what? For this year, Mitch Hyatt, maybe the Clemson left tackle, 4-year starter. Had a kind of a sneaky good year this year. I liked him a lot against Notre Dame. He'll test well. I mean, he's 6'6". I mean, he looked like $1 million in high school. I can imagine now. You're talking 20 guys, maybe more. I mean, there are guys who haven't sniffed the field yet for these two teams that could be first rounders.
Yeah,
it's unbelievable. If you're an NFL guy, you're dialed in. You're dialed into this game. If you're a scout,
you're definitely watching this one. So.
Yeah. If you're a scout, Xavier Thomas might be a first rounder down the line. I mean, there's a bunch. There's a bunch on both sides. So it's fun. A lot of 5-stars on the field, and that's if you're a 5-star on 24/7 Sports, we think you have first round ability early on. So a lot of 5-stars, obviously, on these two rosters for sure. Yeah. Good question though. Fun question.
Yeah, it's good.
Very, very fun question. I mean, look, let's enjoy this Tua versus T Law, man, because something weird could happen next year, and that's really the only other window where we're going to get this potentially because
Yeah, I mean,
nobody expects Tua to play 4 years at Alabama, and who's expecting Trevor Lawrence to play 4 years at Clemson, right?
I think this has the chance to be like the best quarterback matchup in college football history. I mean,
bold.
It is bold, but I mean, it has that feeling. Like it has that potential. I mean, obviously, there's been great ones before.
I mean, this is no Jake Coker, Deshaun Watson,
There's been great ones before. We're gonna talk about it. You can say like, you got the Vince Young, Matt Leinart.
Yeah, but they both sucked in the NFL.
Yeah, but I'm saying college.
Oh, college. Well, we got the Mariota Winston semifinal a couple years ago.
Yeah,
but that was a semifinal.
That was semi, and then you got obviously, you got last week you got Tua and Kyler, which was a really good matchup. No matter how you want to look at it.
Yeah, Kyler dominated after the first quarter. Man, he was great. I mean that throw on the run.
That throw on the run that he threw.
Throw on the run in the back of the end zone was unbelievable. Like my jaw was on the ground for a minute. That was a hell of a play. And he woke up as a runner after a weird start by his standards. He had a great game.
Tebow Bradford, another one that was really good.
A couple Heisman winners. Yep.
Yeah. Then obviously you had Mariota Winston, which was a semi. And then if you want to go like regular season matchups, you had like Baker versus Patrick Mahomes, like that was like
that's the reason he left Tech, right? Because Mahomes was going to start
10,000 yards in that game. Like
that's crazy.
Obvious exaggeration, but you get
probably 1,000.
Oh, there was well over, I think.
That's insane.
So this could very well go down as one of those great matchups in history, and it might only happen once. You never know. You might get it twice, but odds of it happening are not high.
No, I mean, you're right, man. We could look back on this matchup as in terms of college and maybe NFL as well as one of those matchups. It's very possible. Yeah. And then the nature of where ball is headed with these quarterbacks and with the spreads and with these dual threats. I mean, this could be the precedent of. I mean, who knows? This could be freaking Brady Manning in college. I mean, we don't know.
Yeah,
we don't know. So that's a good point by you. And this is the shootout. This is what we wanted, man. This is what we wanted. This is
You obviously want best on best. Everybody wants best on best, and we'll see where it goes. We'll see what happens, and I expect nothing more than. If we were playing NCAA, I would expect nothing more than the little thing to pop up at the end of the game and says
instant classic.
Instant classic, and it might even be you might even get a number one out of it. Who knows? Because I throwing it back to some nostalgia there. Get the little pop up that says instant classic. Could be number one.
Could be.
So we'll see. Right now, I think my number one instant classic is still probably Texas USC in the Rose Bowl.
Tough to beat that one.
Vince Young winning it with less than a minute left on fourth down is probably still my number one on the instant classic list.
That's the last time the SEC didn't dominate, by the way.
Yeah.
It's the last time the SEC or ACC didn't dominate.
Wow. So you had those two heavyweights in it, and that's probably still my number one. Number two, maybe the late game heroics from Jameis against Auburn.
Yeah, man, that was a great game.
So
forget that one.
Yeah.
Auburn was beating the crap out of them with Trey Mason, right?
Yeah.
Trey Mason, and then they came all the way back. Kelvin Benjamin. How about Kelvin Benjamin? That's probably going to be his career-defining moment because it doesn't look like it's going to happen in the NFL.
Doesn't look like it'll be anything in the NFL.
Yeah.
But so that's gonna about wrap it up for us today.
Well, we got more in the chat, man. You opened up the chat and took one question.
Oh well, you wanna hit those for me?
Yeah, man. I'll hit those for you. I know you got to get going. Kev's got a real adult life, unlike me.
Yeah, like going and picking up kids from school and stuff. So
We'll get to that. We may go live tonight after the game. We'll
yeah,
see. We're trying to work out some logistics.
Don't count it out.
Yeah,
we'll try. We'll see what's going
we
on.
would definitely try. I may need an extra coffee because we all know this game's gonna be like 10 hours long.
Yeah,
but
so
you can try to make it happen.
I'll make my pitch and then I'll let John finish. So go ahead and if you haven't already, subscribe to the YouTube channel and hit the bell notification button. Go to the website, register for an account so you can get on the mailing list that gets sent out when we post new articles and that kind of stuff. Hopefully, I got some more big news coming about our website. Stay tuned for that. Could be a game changer. Hopefully, a game changer. And then, obviously, the social media accounts. Crimson and Blue Chips on Facebook, CABC Pod on Twitter and Instagram, guys. And once again, John will finish you out. But thank you guys for joining in, and I appreciate you coming. And we'll see you maybe tonight.
All right, Kev. Appreciate your efforts there, as always. All right, so let's roll through some of the chat here and see what folks want to talk about. There's some commentary in addition to questions, which is always
hold on. My man asked for my pick. My pick's still Clemson, guys.
I mean, you had to do it to him. As people log out, we'll continue. Alabama fan 123 asks, if Alabama can protect Tua, it will be a double-digit win for Alabama. That's ambitious for sure. Josh Hicks, defense will need to force Lawrence into a couple of freshman mistakes. I agree there, Josh. You got to pressure T-Law, make him make perfect throws. That's kind of my adjusted game plan. I thought Alabama would focus more on the running game, but I think you bring the house, you take your lumps in the process, but you bring the house and you let your DBs play man coverage behind it. DJ wants to know, will Anoma have a bigger role in the game? I don't think so. I think Jamie Mosley, LeBron Ray, those guys will get a little bit more precedent because of their experience over Ayabi Anoma. Those guys a little bit more set to set the edge against the run, and they could also rush the passer as opposed to Anoma, who we assume right now much more of a pure pass rusher compared to Jamie Mosley. Yes, he's the younger brother of CJ Mosley, in case you guys forgot that. Will Trevor Lawrence have a freshman moment? Bama will need that, I think. Notre Dame did a great job attacking the A-gaps. Yeah, they really pressured him inside. That was kind of their angle. DJ says Notre Dame is trash. DJ, I happen to agree. I thought they were overrated all year. Would have loved to see Bama versus Georgia Part 2 there in the playoff, but I know I'm in the minority there. Crimson Freak says Clemson will have problems with Quinnen Williams. Clemson's weakness, in my humble opinion, O-line and secondary. Sense of tumor, y'all need to take calls. This game won't be close. We would love to take calls one day. We'll work towards that. And I disagree. I don't think it'll be a blowout. Crimson Freak does agree with sense of tumor. DJ says Notre Dame overhyped Clemson. Bama by 14. DJ also says Oklahoma's offense better than Clemson's offense, which I agree with in general, although I think they present different situations, and I think both quarterbacks will present a bevy of problems for Alabama. Mook says they don't have Deshaun Watson. You are factually correct. Sense of tumor back at it says the Clemson defense by far, because of the obscene of Lawrence on the D-line, I'm not sure what you mean there, is far worse than last year's Clemson defense. DJ says Deshaun Watson is better than Trevor Lawrence. I don't think anybody has disagreed with that from an overall quarterback standpoint, although Trevor Lawrence does have a better arm, stands taller in the pocket, and can play with more accuracy, but Watson, more seasoned, obviously dual threat, beat Bama once, something Trevor hasn't yet done. A lot of people pointing to Trevor Lawrence's freshman mistakes as a potential catalyst here as a reason that Bama will win, and that's kind of lazy in my opinion. Oh, he's a freshman, he's going to make a mistake. The dude is 15 games into this thing. I mean, you're not really a freshman anymore. Did Tua make those freshman mistakes last year? Maybe one or two, but at this point, I mean, it's literally the next year after you enrolled, and for a guy like Trevor Lawrence, he's been enrolled for more than a year now. So the whole freshman thing, I think, is a little overplayed at this point from a guy who's been in a lot of different circumstances for Clemson this year. I'm going to scroll down. Some folks asking about the weather. Apparently, other people said that weather's not going to be as much of an issue there. So we'll leave that where it is, and I guess just play kind of a wait and see situation there. Michael says later. Kev wanted to know Kev's pick, and Kev's got Clemson. Brady comes in late and says Texas USC was great, but it's not the all-time great that people say it is. Both Bama Clemson championship games were just as good. They were both great, and I expect this one to be similar. Nick Saban. Oh, hey, Nick, welcome in. Glad you're preparing by hanging out with us. He says, I think we play them like 2017 and knock them out one half, but this year we have the offense to win it. Yeah, people have forgotten that the first half of that 17 game was all Bama, Bo Scarborough before the broken leg. They were rolling. And then things changed. Bradley comes back in and says, doesn't surprise me that Kev is picking Clemson, seeing how Kev is never right with his kicks. Glad he didn't pick Bama, LOL. Okay, Bradley, thank you for that. Couple recruiting questions, and I guess we'll wrap it up from there. If you guys are done with us, again, we may come back in, 10, 11 hours for the post-Natty show. Michael says it's going to be epic. Nick Saban says, what are the odds of Sopsher landing with Alabama? I think they're about 50-50. He thinks his brother is going to be a package deal no matter what. And if that's the case, I don't see him ending up at Alabama. It could very well be that simple. So we'll see there on how it goes. Michael says, are we going to blitz a lot tonight? I would. I'd blitz Trevor a ton and make him make perfect throws on the run, all of these things. But we shall see. Kev is on the record for Clemson. I'm on the record for Clemson since August. Probably going to stick with that with Trevor Lawrence at the helm. I think he's just the better quarterback prospect at this juncture or in the future, whatever you want to call it. I think he's the best quarterback I've ever scouted. He is the best quarterback I've ever scouted. So I'm going to go with that. I think there are vulnerabilities on either side, considerably in the secondary, on the interior, both safety groups, both linebacker groups leave something to be desired from a coverage standpoint. And I think that the Clemson wide receivers are built to combat these Alabama defensive backs before you even get into Travis Etienne as a potential X factor, because Alabama actually hasn't been great against the run this year. So I think he could potentially bring something that we didn't even see against Notre Dame, save for the one long touchdown run. That could be quite interesting in this game. But I could see Alabama running away with it too. On the flip side, Alabama has been able to establish whatever it wants offensively, it seems like. Can it do that against Clemson? Can it do that against that pass rush? How healthy is Tua? How mobile is Tua? Those are questions that we don't really have the answers for, not even factoring in the potential weather situation. So I think that could be another interesting layer to this conversation. But I expect a close game either way. I'm talking last person with the ball kind of thing. Either way, I really don't envision a blowout. I know a lot of Bama fans, maybe they're Bama homers, are expecting Bama to roll easily in this one. I don't see that scenario playing itself out, but you just never know. You just never know. So we shall see. I've got Clemson going into it. Very narrow margin either way. I think both quarterbacks have a good game, and both quarterbacks show why they're probably the number one picks in 2020 and 2021. This is the shootout we all wanted. This is the shootout we all deserve. Two best teams, and whoever wins it gets to do something that has literally never happened in the history of this great sport. 15-0. Think about that. Clemson and Alabama and Clemson today have already won as many games as any team ever in one given season. And now it has the chance to do something that the other or anyone else has ever been able to do, winning 15 games out of 15 college football playoff national champions. So either way, history will be made tonight. Either way, this Clemson-Alabama rivalry will be renewed tonight. Either way, Alabama-Clemson seems to be the precedent set for years to come, regardless of the quarterbacks, with these coaches, with the way they recruit, all of these things. I think this is great for college football. I'm pumped. You should be pumped, whether you're a fan of Bama or you're here just trolling. This should be a great night. We'll look forward to watching the game, and we'll be back with you guys somewhere thereafter. Thanks for listening, everybody. God bless. Garcia and the crew, we're out.